What if you're not trapped by fate, but by frequency? You wake up, same room, same thoughts, same emotional undertone humming beneath your morning breath. And even when you speak of dreams, of timelines, of infinite realities waiting to be accessed, life seems to loop again and again, as if nothing truly shifts, as if the future you seek is dangling just beyond the veil, always out of reach. But what if the loop isn't reality refusing to change? What if it's your system refusing to detach? There is an illusion most never see, a silent algorithm embedded in your nervous system, in your language, in your breath. It's not just your mind repeating old ideas. It's your entire being, subconscious chemistry frequency, broadcasting the old timeline as if it's still true, as if it's still safe, as if it's still you. You are not here to force change into existence. You are here to tune into the version of reality already vibrating beneath your resistance. Let's make something clear. The field of potential doesn't withhold transformation. It mirrors coherence. And coherence isn't made of words. It's made of embodied truth. That's why people visualize abundance and still vibrate scarcity. Why they affirm love and still armor their heart. Why they study quantum theory and still relive childhood fear. Because beneath the conscious ritual, the signal of safety remains hooked into the past, into trauma, into memorized emotion, into identity, into the loop. And the loop doesn't need your belief to exist. It needs your participation. Let that settle. The most powerful signal you send isn't your spoken intention. It's your unspoken expectation, not the one you journal, but the one you embody when no one's watching. When you're alone with a bill, a memory, or a silence. When your body tenses, when your nervous system braces, when your subconscious says, "This is familiar, this is who we are." This is the invisible glue of your current timeline. Repetition, disguised as reality. Pause here. Have you ever asked yourself, what am I rehearsing in silence that keeps this timeline alive? Every time you default to reaction, shrink in the face of truth, or act from the program of not enough, you aren't failing, you're feeding the pattern. You're energetically casting a vote for the old identity to remain in charge. And the quantum responds, not with judgment, with reflection. So let's dissolve the myth. You're not stuck because you're not trying hard enough. You're stuck because you're still aligned with the frequency of what you're trying to escape. And the field, it listens to that. Here's the paradox most teachings skip over. Desire isn't enough. Wanting isn't power. Embodied coherence is. If you say, "I want freedom," but your nervous system is wired for bracing, what gets broadcasted isn't your affirmation, it's your contraction. If you say, "I'm ready for a new timeline," but your breath holds shame from the old one, the field doesn't hear your words. It hears your signal. Let's go deeper. Your loop is not a punishment. It's a pattern encoded in biology, formed by emotion, reinforced by repetition, and disguised as personality. But the deeper truth? Your loop is not who you are. It's who you practiced being. And if you practiced it, you can unpractice it. You can remember a different signal. That's the gift of awareness. Not to observe what's wrong, but to become the new observer. Because quantum mechanics teaches us this. The act of observation collapses the wave into a particle, into reality. But you are not observing reality with eyes alone. You're observing it with your expectation, your emotion, your state of being. Let that land. It's not your vision board that's manifesting. It's your nervous system. It's not the I am affirmations that shape your reality. It's the I feel, I breathe, I brace, I withhold, I collapse. And until the observer shifts, the timeline doesn't. This is where neuroscience meets mysticism. 95% of your behavior is subconscious. Not cognitive, not intellectual, embodied. So the question is not, why isn't my life changing? The question is, who is observing my life? What version of me is collapsing the wave of reality into form? And here's where the power returns. The moment you begin to observe the observer, to witness not just your actions but your energetic patterns, you weaken the loop, not by fighting it, but by ceasing to feed it, by choosing not to rehearse it, by softening when you usually brace, by breathing when you normally flee, by returning, not reacting. That is the first gesture of quantum shift, interrupting the momentum of the loop. And you don't have to interrupt it perfectly, you just have to interrupt it consistently. Let's say it plainly. There's no magic switch, but there is rhythm, there is resonance. And every time you choose a different frequency, you collapse a different possibility. Pause again. What's your loop? Fear, scarcity, self-sabotage masked as logic, the ache of repeating the same lesson in a new disguise. Name it, not to shame it, but to dissolve its power, because naming the loop is the first act of collapsing it. And if this reflection is stirring something inside you, if you feel the ache of, I've known this, but I haven't lived it, that's not failure, that's awareness awakening. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching, you're remembering. So take a breath, like, subscribe. Stay with this space, because what's coming next might just shift everything. What if every version of your life already exists, and you're just tuning the dial? Reality doesn't happen to you, it unfolds through you. Like a signal waiting to be dialed in, each moment of your life is not built from scratch, it's selected, chosen, collapsed. And yet, most people live as though the future is a mystery, and the past is a weight they must carry forward. But, in truth, you're not dragging the past behind you. You're rebroadcasting it, through vibration, through coherence, through the silent song of your nervous system. Let's unravel the illusion. You are immersed in a quantum field, a sea of infinite probability, where every possible version of reality already exists, not just in theory, in frequency, in vibration, in form, waiting to be shaped. And this field isn't linear. It doesn't operate on time as we know it. It responds to now, to your coherence in the now. This is where most manifestation teachings miss the mark. They treat life like a goal to chase, as if the future must be earned, fought for, magnetized by effort. But the field doesn't respond to striving. It responds to synchronization. The moment you synchronize your system with the version of reality where what you desire is already true, the field has no choice. It must reflect that alignment, not because you tricked it, but because that's how the physics of coherence works. Let's make this real. Think of the quantum field like a radio dial. Each frequency represents a timeline. Each timeline holds a version of you, and the version you experience is the one you're tuned to, consistently, unconsciously, vibrationally. You don't need to create your dream life, you need to collapse into it. And collapsing doesn't mean pushing. It means aligning so completely that no other frequency can hold you. Let that land. The future isn't waiting, it's vibrating. And vibration doesn't lie. This is why you can visualize wealth and still feel panic when paying a bill. Why you can affirm love and still flinch when someone gets too close. Why you can journal clarity and still spiral in confusion. Because the timeline you inhabit isn't defined by what you say. It's defined by what you signal. Consistently, your dominant vibration is your selection key, and most people are vibrating not from conscious intention, but from subconscious memory. Here's the bridge between science and self. In quantum mechanics, we learn about the wave function, the idea that everything exists in a state of possibility until observed. The act of observation collapses that wave into a single, tangible outcome, a particle, a moment, a reality. But observation isn't just visual. In your life, observation is made through emotion, through expectation, through the frequency of your attention. Every sigh, every bracing breath, every tightening of your gut when faced with the unknown. This is observation. You're not just looking at reality, you're shaping it. Subtly, constantly, unconsciously. The most consistent observer wins. And right now, for most, that observer is still rooted in fear. Not because they want to stay there, but because they haven't learned how to regulate their signal. This is where your power lies. You are not a victim of chance. You are a frequency generator embedded in a responsive field. Every thought, every breath, every micro decision carries a frequency. And frequency is not metaphorical. It's measurable, it's biological, it's emotional, it's spiritual. Let's drop into that. Your body, your nervous system, your hormones, your heart rhythm broadcasts a field. This isn't spiritual poetry, it's physics. Your heart has its own electromagnetic field. Your brain emits brainwaves. Your breath carries coherence or chaos. You are always transmitting, and the field is always listening. So when people say, "But I want this so badly," we must ask, are you vibrating with it or vibrating in lack of it? Because desire without coherence creates distortion. Wanting without embodying creates noise. And noise doesn't collapse a timeline, only clarity does. This is why subtle shifts matter more than grand gestures. One coherent breath can shift more than hours of mental repetition. One act of self-trust can carry more frequency than 100 affirmations spoken from fear. And this brings us to a sacred truth. The universe is not rewarding action. It's reflecting resonance. Let's repeat that again. Softly, firmly. The universe is not rewarding action. It is reflecting resonance. So your task is not to do more. It's to become more coherent. And coherence isn't perfection. It's integrity between your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. When these three align, when what you think matches what you feel and how you behave, the signal is clear. And when the signal is clear, the field can finally mirror it back. But when you say one thing, feel another, and act from a third place entirely, the field collapses the dominant vibration, not the verbal one. So ask yourself, where am I out of resonance with the reality I say I want? This question is not judgment, it's liberation, because once you see the gap, you can shift it, not all at once, not perfectly, but one breath, one choice, one emotional pivot at a time. Here's what most people miss. You don't attract what you want, you collapse what you become. And becoming is not about pretending, it's about aligning so deeply that the old timeline can no longer hold you. The moment you regulate your system into the vibration of peace, the field begins to reflect peace. The moment you trust abundance without seeing it, the field begins to reveal it. The moment you feel love without conditions, love becomes your atmosphere. This is not metaphysics. This is embodiment. So let's take a breath together, right now, not for calm, for coherence. You don't need to escape this moment. You need to tune it. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember the version of you already existing in the frequency you seek. And if this landed, you're not just watching this, you're shifting. Stay present. There's more to unfold. And if something in this is vibrating as true, subscribe, like, and keep breathing with us. You're not manifesting what you say. You're manifesting what you broadcast. Every day, people speak their desires out loud. I am abundant. I am ready for love. I am enough. And yet, nothing changes. They light the candle, say the mantra, write the vision, feel the hope, and still, the loop continues. Why? Because the field of creation doesn't respond to words. It responds to vibration, to the signal beneath the words. This is the most overlooked truth in the world of manifestation. You can say everything right and still be broadcasting contraction. You can visualize a new life while your body prepares for the same old disappointment, because the subconscious doesn't speak language. It speaks sensation. It speaks association. It speaks through your nervous system. This is why affirmations often fail, not because they're wrong, but because they're not complete. They're cognitive, they're mental, they're layered on top of an unshifted foundation. Let's make this clear. If your body doesn't believe the words, the field won't either. This is not punishment, it's coherence. When you say I'm safe, but your heart rate is elevated, your shoulders are tense and your breath is shallow, the field registers fear, not affirmation. When you say I'm wealthy, but you check your bank account and panic, the field registers scarcity, not abundance. Not because you're broken, but because your system is still attuned to survival. Let's pause here and ask, what is the signal your body sends when no one is watching? Not what you think, not what you hope, but what your breath reveals, what your posture says, what your instinct does. This is the hidden language of manifestation, not words, but energy. Your nervous system is the interface between you and the quantum. It's the translator, the filter, the amplifier. And most people are trying to manifest new realities using a dysregulated, unresolved system that still expects danger. So what happens? They repeat affirmations but feel nothing. They visualize but can't hold the image. They try to believe, but part of them always flinches. Deep down, that flinch, that hesitation, that pause in the breath, that is the real signal. It's like trying to tune a radio to a frequency of joy while the internal signal still pulses grief. It creates static. And static doesn't collapse timelines, clarity does. But here's the hope. Signals can be retrained. The nervous system is not fixed. It's neuroplastic. It's moldable. It's responsive. And most importantly, it's always listening. So the work is not to force belief. It's to create safety in the body for a new belief to land. You don't need to fake positivity. You need to build a foundation where positivity feels natural. Let's go deeper. Each emotion you feel carries a frequency, not metaphorically, literally. Emotions like shame and guilt vibrate at lower frequencies. Emotions like joy, love, and gratitude vibrate higher. When your system is flooded with unresolved fear or suppressed grief, it operates like static interference. No matter how many affirmations you speak, the emotional resonance overrides the cognitive intention. This is why trauma work. Nervous system regulation and somatic awareness are not optional. They are essential for anyone truly wanting to shift realities. The field listens to dominant signals, not dominant thoughts. So if you want to manifest love, it's not enough to say, I am loved. You must soften where you armored. You must exhale where you held your breath. You must allow where you once controlled. This is not mental work. This is embodiment. And embodiment isn't performance, it's presence. So how do you begin? By Listening, by noticing the contradiction between what you say and what your body reveals. By feeling the no behind the spoken yes, the resistance beneath the desire, the old memory behind the new vision, not to shame it, to integrate it. Because integration is the key to coherence. Let's break this down practically. If your affirmation is, I am worthy, but your body contracts in shame, pause. Don't push the words. Breathe into the contraction. Ask where it comes from. Hold it like a child that's never been heard, because your nervous system doesn't need correction, it needs connection. That moment of connection, that breath of presence, is the beginning of a new signal, one that says, I'm listening now, one that whispers, we don't have to pretend anymore, one that carries frequency, not force, and frequency shifts reality, because the field responds to what you feel when you're not trying to feel anything at all. That's your real broadcast. So here's the gentle truth. You don't need to repeat more affirmations. You need to feel safer in your body when they're spoken. You don't need to visualize harder. You need to heal the part of you that still expects things to fall apart. You don't need to fake joy. You need to breathe into the grief that's blocking it. The timeline you want is not asking for performance, it's asking for presence. That is the deepest signal of all, and the moment you tune into that signal, even for a few seconds a day, something begins to shift. The nervous system softens, the subconscious opens, the field listens, and new outcomes begin to form, not through force, but through fidelity. Let's return to the root. Manifestation isn't about control, it's about coherence. And coherence isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's a conversation with your inner world, a dialogue between your future self and your present tension. And in that space, change no longer feels like pressure, it feels like permission. Permission to stop performing, permission to soften, permission to embody who you've always been. And if this resonates, you're already shifting, not by trying, but by tuning. Take a moment now. Breathe. Notice your posture. Notice your breath. Notice your internal yes or no to what you desire. And if you feel that quiet pull to keep walking this path, subscribe, like, and stay close to this space. Because you're not just learning, you're remembering. Your body isn't holding you back, it's holding the memory of who you had to be to survive. There is a reason why you can know the theory and still feel stuck. Why you can believe in the quantum and still collapse into fear. Why you can want to change and still behave in ways that betray that desire. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're failing. It's because your body remembers more than your thoughts, more than your vision boards, more than your desire. Your body is coated with imprints, emotional residues from every moment you couldn't process, every time you had to hold it in, every time it wasn't safe to feel, every time you needed to survive. And those imprints, they became identity, not because they're true, but because they were repeated. What is repeated becomes familiar, and what is familiar becomes safe, and what is safe is chosen, even when it hurts. This is why people stay in loops they logically want to escape. Because their nervous system is not wired for the new, it's wired for the known. Let that land. You're not resisting change. Your body is protecting you from the unknown it still labels as unsafe. And that protection feels like overthinking, emotional numbness, procrastination and perfectionism, self-sabotage disguised as logic. This is not mindset, it's chemistry. It's neurobiology. Every trauma, big or small, creates a somatic memory, a vibration stored not in your thoughts, but in your fascia, your breath, your gut, your tone of voice, your reflexes, and these stored memories become filters through which you perceive life. So even when your conscious mind says yes to change, your body braces. Even when your higher self says, I trust, your breath says, I don't. Even when you declare, I'm ready, your posture says, I'm not. Because readiness isn't a choice, it's a state, and states are vibrational. Let's look closer. Your nervous system, specifically your autonomic system, is constantly scanning for safety, not based on logic, based on association. If love used to mean abandonment, it now equals danger. If visibility used to mean criticism, it now equals threat. If money used to mean chaos, it now equals instability. This is the body's language, pattern matching. And if the new timeline contains a frequency your system doesn't associate with safety, it will resist, even if you consciously desire it. This is why people revert after big breakthroughs, why expansion triggers anxiety, why the upper limit isn't psychological, it's biological. It's not sabotage, it's survival. But here's the power. What was once wired can be rewired. This is the essence of somatic reprogramming. Not to force the body into new behavior, but to teach it that safety exists in the new vibration. And that begins with awareness. So let's ask, where does your body flinch when the new timeline calls you forward? Is it in your breath? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your tone? In your need to explain? In your urge to control? These reflexes are clues, not problems. Clues. They show you where the old timeline is still echoing. And every time you pause instead of react, every time you breathe instead of brace, every time you soften instead of defend, you rewrite the signal. Because the quantum doesn't require perfection, it requires coherence. Coherence begins when the body feels safe enough to stay open. Let's go deeper. Your hormones, neurotransmitters, and cellular environment are not just passive responses, they are part of the loop. When you are locked in fear, your body produces cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones that reinforce vigilance and separation. When you are in gratitude or calm presence, your body produces oxytocin and serotonin, chemistry of connection and openness. This means your biology is not only recording your experience, it's reinforcing it. The loop is not mental, it's physiological, and it will keep playing until you interrupt it with presence. So how do we interrupt? Not through force, but through regulation. Regulation is not bypassing pain. It's creating the capacity to stay present with it without collapsing. It's holding sensation, breathing through discomfort, being curious instead of reactive. This is the foundation of all timeline shifts. A regulated body that no longer mistakes peace for danger. Because once the body feels safe, the field can shift. The signal becomes clear, and the loop begins to dissolve, not from willpower but from resonance. This is where real reprogramming happens, and it's not glamorous, it's not loud, it's not immediate, it's quiet, consistent, somatic, sacred, and it looks like saying no when your body says no, even if your mind doubts, resting when the urge is to prove, trusting sensation more than stories, listening to tears as wisdom, letting the breath guide your timeline, not just the mind. Every time you do this, you become the version of you that can hold the next frequency, not just visit it, but inhabit it. Let's breathe into this together. And as you do, ask, what part of me is still fighting for the old identity? What would happen if I stopped? That question isn't dangerous, it's the threshold. And if you feel something awakening, stay with it. Like, subscribe, keep returning to this space. Because regulation isn't a task, it's a return. You're not watching reality happen, you're telling it what to become. There's a secret hidden in plain sight, a law written into the structure of existence itself. It whispers through quantum mechanics and pulses through every breath you take. Reality doesn't exist until it's observed, and who you are as the observer changes what it becomes. This is not poetry, this is physics. In the quantum world, we know this as the observer effect, the discovery that the very act of observation alters the outcome. A wave becomes a particle, a potential becomes a moment, a maybe becomes a now. And yet, what most forget is that observation is not passive. You are not a neutral witness. You are an active architect, collapsing waveforms into form through the filter of your consciousness. But not just your conscious thoughts, your subconscious expectations, your emotional resonance, your felt sense of identity. These are what collapse the field. So when you wake up and brace for stress, when you expect disappointment before it happens, when you carry fear before there's even a threat, you're not just predicting reality. You're creating the conditions for it to emerge. This is where science meets soul. Because what's collapsing the quantum field into your lived experience is not what you know. It's what you believe beneath what you know. That's why two people can stand in the same room and live in different timelines. One sees possibility, the other sees danger. Same environment, different observers, different outcomes. Because you're not living in reality as it is, you're living in a version of reality filtered by the observer you've become. Let's go deeper. If you grew up being punished for expressing truth, your observer may filter reality as unsafe for honesty. If you learned that love disappears, your observer may collapse timelines where abandonment keeps repeating. If your earliest memories coded money with stress, your observer may keep collapsing scarcity, even when abundance is present. And because the subconscious drives 95% of your behavior, this observer is often invisible, but dominant. It shows up in how you read silence, how you interpret an email, how you assume someone's intent, how you breathe when nothing is wrong. And this internal observer is not neutral. It's patterned, it's trained, it's rehearsed. And this is where change begins, not by changing your circumstances, but by changing the observer. Because when the observer shifts, the timeline does too. But here's the challenge. The observer is addicted to confirmation. It wants to be Right, it seeks the familiar. It clings to evidence that matches its beliefs, even painful ones. So if your observer believes life is hard, it will ignore ease and amplify struggle. If it believes nothing ever works out, it will sabotage peace just to feel in control. If it believes I'm always alone, it will filter out love to reinforce isolation. This is why people unconsciously collapse the same reality again and again, not because it's destiny, but because it's familiar, because the observer hasn't been updated. And the quantum field? It doesn't judge. It simply reflects. So how do we change the observer? Not through force, not through pretending, but through gentle disruption, through curiosity, through awareness. Ask yourself, what version of me is currently observing my life? Who taught them how to see? Because if the observer was built from trauma, from conditioning, from inherited fear, then the reality it collapses will carry that signature. This isn't your fault, but it is your invitation. Because the observer is not permanent. It is plastic. It is neurobiological. It is energetic, and it can be recoded. Here's how. Awareness. Notice when you're not responding to reality, but to memory. Pause. Interrupt the reflex to confirm the old narrative. Reattune. Feel what it's like to observe with trust, with openness, with wonder. Anchor. Use breath, movement, and sensation to ground the new signal. This isn't performance. It's recalibration. It's becoming the observer who expects peace, who reads silence as safety, who sees opportunity in the unknown, who doesn't need chaos to feel real. And every time you shift the observer, the field shifts with you. Let's make it practical. If you're manifesting abundance, but your observer only sees limitation, breathe. Interrupt the scan for what's missing. Begin to notice what is available, not to force gratitude, but to widen perception. If you're seeking love, but your observer expects pain, pause. Feel the reflex to push away. Soften. Let presence enter before assumption. And if you're seeking clarity, but your observer thrives on confusion, challenge the pattern. Speak a truth where you once stayed silent. Trust the knowing that arrives without explanation. Because sometimes the greatest shift is not in the field, but in the eyes that meet it. You are the code, the pattern, the lens, and the moment you change, the observer, you rewrite the outcome. If this lands with you, pause. Notice who is watching right now. The fearful self, the awakened self, the habitual self. And if you're feeling the presence of a new observer awakening in you, stay in this field with us, because we're not here to force reality. We're here to remember how to see. Your future self isn't a fantasy, it's a frequency, and you can tune into it now. There's a version of you that already lives the life you desire, not in theory, in vibration. That version doesn't exist in the future. It exists in a timeline parallel to the one you're currently tuned into. And here's the key. You don't reach that version through time. You reach it through coherence. This is the sacred truth hidden beneath all manifestation teachings. You don't become something over time. You access the version of you that already is. So when people ask, how do I manifest my dream reality? The deeper question is, how do I become vibrationally indistinguishable from the version of me who already lives it? Because that version already breathes in ease, already moves in trust, already thinks, reacts, chooses, and feels from a different signal. You don't need to build her from scratch. You need to match her. You need to tune to her frequency and begin to live from that place. Not someday, but now. Let's pause and reflect. What is the frequency of your future self? Is it peace? Is it boldness? Is it flow? Is it quiet certainty? Whatever it is, that's your access point. Because the field doesn't respond to intention alone, it responds to embodied identity. And identity is not a thought, it's a vibration. How you carry yourself when no one's watching. It's the posture of your nervous system. It's the stories you no longer tell. It's the silence that feels like safety, not threat. This is where embodiment begins. Let's be clear. Embodiment is not pretending to be someone you're not. It's removing what you're not so the real you can emerge, the one that already exists, the one that's always been there beneath the conditioning. So many people try to perform a new timeline. They mimic behaviors. They speak affirmations. They repeat mantras, but they do it with the vibration of effort, not integration. And effort is noise. The field doesn't mirror noise. It mirrors authentic resonance. Here's the subtle shift. You're not trying to become something. You're remembering what it feels like to already be it. This means you don't fake confidence. You breathe like someone who belongs. You don't try to trust. You stop rehearsing collapse. You don't wait to feel abundant. You spend with presence, not panic. You don't visualize love. You live like someone who expects connection. Because your future self is already doing those things. You're not inventing her, you're synchronizing with her. Let's make this real. Imagine you could watch your future self for a day. What does she wear? How does she speak? What does she not explain? How does she respond to doubt, to success, to silence? Now ask, where do I still collapse into a version of me who doesn't believe this is possible? That moment of collapse, that hesitation, that breath hold, that retreat is your work, not to fix, to feel, to meet, to breathe through. Because when you stay present through the contraction, you build the capacity to hold the new frequency. And when you hold it, consistently, even quietly, reality begins to reflect it. The field doesn't respond to declarations. It responds to who you are in the micro moments, the small, unseen, uncelebrated choices, like staying open in a difficult conversation, like saying no without apologizing, like resting without guilt, like spending from trust, not tension, like not explaining your worth. These are the habits of your future self, not as performance, as normal. So practice them not to prove you've changed, but to remember who you already are. Let's go deeper. There is a moment in the shift when the old identity stops clinging, not because you force it to let go, but because you stop feeding it. That version of you who doubted, shrank, apologized, waited for proof, she gets quieter, not exiled, loved, integrated, because you no longer need her to protect you. You've remembered a new signal, and the more you stay in it, the less effort it takes. This is the turning point. When the new timeline doesn't feel like effort, it feels like home. And from there, everything accelerates, not because the outside changed, but because the inside became stable enough to receive it. Well, here's the invitation. Instead of asking, how do I get there? Ask, how does the version of me who's already there feel right now? Then breathe, listen, act from that place. No rush, no pressure, just presence. And if that version of you is awakening as you read this, stay with it. Stay here. Like, subscribe, walk with us, because you're not chasing her, you're becoming her. The universe doesn't need grand gestures. It listens to your smallest. Truth, repeated in silence. We live in a world obsessed with big moves, radical change, dramatic transformation. Burn the old, build the new. But here's the sacred paradox. Reality doesn't shift through noise. It shifts through resonance, and resonance is often quiet. It's how you show up when no one's watching. It's the breath you choose before reacting, the word you don't say, the meal you eat slowly, the decision you make from alignment, not fear. These are micro-alignments, small, vibrational, choices that ripple into the field with more power than any external action ever could. Because in the quantum, size doesn't matter, coherence does. Let's slow this down. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions match, you're broadcasting a clear signal. And that signal begins to collapse reality around you, not over weeks, not after 21 days, now, because the quantum responds not to timeline, but to timing. And timing is made of moments, micro moments, of choice. Let's make it tangible. If you say you want abundance, but you spend money in fear, that fear is the signal. If you say you want peace, but you check your phone first thing in the morning, that anxiety is the signal. If you say you want clarity, but you fill your day with noise, that avoidance is the signal. And the field, it doesn't judge, it simply reflects. So the shift isn't in doing more, it's in doing differently. Tiny, deliberate, embodied. Let's map this out. If you're aligning with abundance, breathe slowly when scarcity thoughts arise. Celebrate small receipts, however insignificant they seem. Choose generosity over control. Spend with reverence, not guilt. Speak gratitude before proof arrives. If you're aligning with love, soften your body when it wants to contract. Offer affection even when fear whispers you'll be rejected. Stay when your pattern wants to flee. Express truth without packaging it for approval. Trust connection before it's guaranteed. If you're aligning with health, eat as though your body is sacred, not broken. Rest without apology. Move with joy, not punishment. Speak to your body with tenderness. See vitality, not absence. Each of these is a micro-alignment. Each one signals the field. This is who I am now. And here's the magic. You don't have to believe it fully yet. You just have to begin broadcasting it. Because action trains identity, and identity trains frequency, and frequency collapses reality. This is not repetition, it's entrainment. It's becoming coherent, not just in ritual, but in rhythm. The field doesn't need your performance, it needs your consistency. Let's pause. What small act can you choose today that belongs to the version of you you've been trying to become? Not a performance, a gesture, a breath, a redirect. Moment where you remember the future version of you. Now, this is the bridge. Not between you and your dream life, but between you and your current signal. Because the truth is, you're not far, you're just out of tune. And micro-alignments bring you back into tune. Let's revisit the field. The quantum is not complicated. It's responsive. It responds not to scale but to clarity, not to timelines but to truth, not to declarations but to decisions repeated with presence. So instead of waiting for a massive shift, become the one who takes small sacred steps, because the version of you who lives in the new timeline isn't more powerful. She's more consistent. She doesn't strive harder. She chooses differently, moment by moment, breath by breath, gesture by gesture, and those choices over time become her timeline. This is how timelines shift, not through force, through fidelity to your future identity. So breathe with me now. Drop into your body, into your real-time field. Ask gently, where can I choose differently? Today, not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. Because one honest act in alignment is more powerful than 100 efforts made in distortion. And the more you repeat it, the more the field must respond. This is not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more of who you already are. Consistently, the field is already shifting. You're not meant to fight for the new timeline. You're meant to become a place where it lands easily. The old path was effort, proving, pushing, trying to deserve what you already are. That path is closed. There is a new way now, a way of stillness without stagnation, of action without strain, of certainty without evidence. This is the path of least resistance, not because it's easy, but because it's true. And truth doesn't require force. It requires resonance. Let's bring it close. So many people try to create their new life from the energy of their old life. They say, I'm ready, but carry the vibration of distrust. They act, but from a place of tension. They visualize, but then brace for disappointment. This is not alignment. It's resistance dressed in ritual. And resistance, even when dressed beautifully, still repels. Because the quantum doesn't listen to appearance. It listens to signal. Let's make this practical. When you take action from fear, the field responds to the fear, not the action. When you speak from lack, even if you speak abundance, the lack is what's mirrored. When you hold your breath while hoping for peace, the contraction is what resonates. And the only thing that collapses timelines is coherent embodiment. This means walking as if it's already true, choosing as if it's already done, breathing as if it's already safe, relating as if you're already whole, spending, resting, speaking, living from the frequency of arrival, not someday, now. Because the future you is not in the future. She exists in the vibrational present. You access her not through proof, but through permission. You allow her to rise, not by performing her, but by removing what is not her. This is the embodiment of your next timeline. Let's slow it down. Most people mistake embodiment for pretending. Fake it till you make it. Perform the energy. Mimic the posture. But the field doesn't respond to performance. It responds to integration. And integration feels different. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause. It's how you choose when no one sees you. How you behave in the gap between the desire and the proof. That gap is sacred. It's where the shift lives. Let's imagine you want to shift into abundance. You're used to holding tension around money. You get paid, and instead of clenching, you breathe. You feel gratitude before spending. You honor the flow. You spend with reverence, not recklessness, not fear, just coherence. That breath is embodiment. That gesture is the path of least resistance, because it doesn't push wealth away. It says, I'm safe in this frequency. Now multiply that moment over days, weeks, micro decisions. Suddenly the field no longer mirrors scarcity, not because you forced it, because you stopped resisting it. Another example, you want to call in love, but your body is used to armoring, to assuming rejection, to waiting for abandonment. So instead of pushing love to come, you soften. You open your chest when speaking. You express affection before proof. You stop interpreting silence as disconnection, and slowly your nervous system learns, love is not a threat. It's a frequency I can hold. That's embodiment, not of the fantasy, of the felt truth. And when you hold that signal, love doesn't have to break your patterns. It becomes your new pattern. Here's the subtle mastery. You're not here to chase the shift. You're here to become a landing place for it. And the body, not the mind, is what makes that landing possible. Let's go deeper. Your body is the antenna of your reality, and when it's dysregulated, it sends out static, even when your words are clear. So regulation isn't optional. It's sacred. It means practicing breath when you'd normally react, moving when you'd collapse, pausing when you'd rush, honoring sensations instead of escaping them. It means becoming the version of you who no longer negotiates her truth to feel safe. This is the frequency of the new timeline, not in your mind, in your nervous system, and when you stay regulated, especially in the unknown, you collapse. The new timeline faster than any vision board ever could. So here's your invitation. Where can you stop trying and start trusting? Where can you embody, softly, sincerely, the version of you who's not waiting anymore? This doesn't mean inaction. It means aligned action, flow, stillness with momentum, power with peace. And if part of you doubts this can be that simple, remember, the ego loves complexity, but the soul recognizes truth by how it feels. And truth feels like this: I already am. I already belong. I already hold the frequency. I'm not waiting. I'm vibrating. Let that be your embodiment, because you're not learning. You're remembering, you're not pushing, you're receiving. The moment after the shift is where most people lose it, not because it didn't work, but because they couldn't hold the signal long enough. You've done the inner work. You've breathed differently, walked with presence, chosen from coherence, aligned with the future timeline. And yet, life still looks the same. The bank account hasn't changed. The relationship hasn't arrived. The opportunity hasn't knocked. So what now? This is the threshold, the moment between the internal collapse of a new timeline and its external confirmation. And it's here that most give up. They return to the loop, not because it's truer, but because it's faster to feel real, because the new timeline requires faith without proof, embodiment without applause, trust without guarantees. This is not a mistake in the process. It is the process. Let's say this clearly. The field doesn't reflect your first choice. It reflects your consistent signal. And consistency is not about rigidity. It's about devotion to coherence, even when the outer world delays. Here's the trap to notice. Most people don't break the loop by collapsing it. They pause it and then go back, because the evidence didn't show up fast enough, because the ego didn't get certainty, because the nervous system didn't feel celebrated. But the quantum isn't a vending machine. It's a mirror of rhythm, and rhythm takes time to stabilize. So this is where the real embodiment begins. Can you hold the new frequency even when the world hasn't caught up yet? Can you stay in alignment when no one validates it? When fear knocks again? When the results stall? Because your task is not to prove the timeline right. It's to hold the frequency until the world has no choice but to reflect it. Let's ground this. The nervous system is wired for confirmation. It craves evidence that it's safe to trust. So when the outer world delays, the body assumes danger. And when danger is assumed, the signal shifts back. This is why timelines collapse and then dissolve, not because they didn't respond, but because the observer couldn't sustain the new signature. So let's ask, what do you do in the waiting? Do you question your worth? Do you reattach to old stories? Do you spiral into, I knew it wouldn't work? Or do you breathe deeper and stabilize? Because stabilization is mastery. It's the ability to choose the new even when it feels like nothing is happening. Keep speaking the frequency when the world goes silent, to act not for reward, but from truth. And this is not about being emotionless. You will feel doubt. You will have days where fear whispers louder, but those moments are not interruptions, they are initiations. They ask, will you recalibrate or retreat? And every recalibration strengthens the signal. Let's bring in a metaphor. Imagine you're tuning a radio to a specific frequency. You've found it, it's clear, but suddenly there's static. Do you throw away the radio? Or do you adjust, fine-tune, wait for the signal to return? This is your work. Not to force the broadcast, but to become still enough to receive it again. The timeline hasn't left you. You've just stopped hearing it. And with practice, you can return. Here are practices that help you hold the signal. Daily anchoring. Start each day with one aligned action, no matter how small. Emotional regulation. Stay present with discomfort. Let it move, not dictate. Ritual of remembering. Speak as your future self. Write from her voice. Walk from her rhythm. Fast from proof-seeking. Spend time each day not looking for evidence. Sacred repetition. Use your breath, your body, your choices as prayers to the field, because the field remembers, and so does your body. And when you both stay in harmony, reality catches up. Not all at once, but in waves, in signs, in quantum echoes that say, it's working. Stay here. Let's pause. What frequency have you been holding? Even without reward, honor it. That devotion matters. It's not wasted. It's shaping, it's planting, it's echoing through dimensions unseen. You're not being tested. You're being entrained. Trained into stability. Trained into vibrational integrity. And that integrity builds reality faster than any strategy ever could. So breathe. Remember, the absence of proof is not the absence of movement. It's just the pause before the mirror reflects. And when it does, you'll recognize it, not as surprise, but as home. Because you're not here to collapse one moment. You're here to sustain a new frequency until it becomes your life. You're not transforming into someone else. You're releasing the noise that said you weren't already divine. There's a point in the journey when you realize you've never been separate. You've never been late. You've never been broken. Only forgotten. You forgot your rhythm. Forgot your essence. Forgot that what you were seeking wasn't in the future. It was in the frequency. And now, something inside of you is remembering. Not intellectually, vibrationally, in your bones, in your breath, in the way you no longer abandon yourself in silence. This is not the end of a journey. It's the collapse of the illusion that there was ever a journey at all. Because every version of you, the one who doubted, the one who tried, the one who almost gave up, was always moving toward this moment. The moment you stopped becoming and started being. Let that settle. You don't need to become powerful. You are power. You don't need to become worthy. You are worth. You don't need to become aligned. You are the frequency the universe responds to. So the work now is not effort, it's reverence for who you already are, for what you already hold, for how much you've already shifted. Even if no one else sees it yet, you see it, you feel it, and that's enough. Let's reflect gently. What timeline are you ready to stop chasing? What version of you are you ready to stop denying? Because when you stop trying to get somewhere, you start vibrating from the place where everything is already here. This is embodiment at its highest frequency. Stillness, knowing, no force, no urgency, only presence. You become the resonator of the life you once thought you had to build. And that life begins to gather around you, not because you chased it, but because you matched it. You're no longer the seeker. You are the signal. Let's go deeper. Even now the world might look the same, but you are not the same observer. You're not collapsing the same outcomes. You're not sending the same signal. You're not reacting from the same place. You've shifted, and that shift is the portal to a life that doesn't come from effort, but from frequency. This is what the sages knew, what the mystics lived, what the physicists discovered, what your soul remembers. Reality is not created, it is allowed, and you are the portal it comes through. So what now? You live, you breathe, you walk as someone who no longer needs to be reminded. You make tea with presence, you speak with reverence, you touch with awareness, you make choices, not to prove, but to honor your timeline. Because the highest manifestation is not more, it's true. It's the version of life that sings in tune with your essence. And from that place you'll notice something strange. People respond to you differently. Opportunities land without striving. Synchronicities echo your thoughts. Your desires feel quieter. Not because you've given up, but because they're already here. You stop trying to explain. You simply exist in clarity and truth and coherence. This is the collapse of the old identity, not as a fight, as a remembering. You are not who you thought you were. You are who you feel when the story falls away. And now that you feel it, you never have to go back. So pause with me. Breathe. Notice what's different. Not in the world, in you. Notice how little you need to push now. How your system feels more open. How trust feels available. This is not a performance, it's your new baseline. And from this frequency, the path ahead is not something to figure out. It's something to be walked, step by step, with presence, with devotion, with joy. You are not becoming. You already are. And the life that matches you, it's not a possibility. It's a mirror waiting for your permission to appear. If this journey opened something within you, like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because what comes next isn't more content, it's continuity. The next video is not another lesson, it's the next breath of this vibration, and you are already in it.